Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A suspect is being questioned in the US city of Boulder after 10 people died, including a police officer, in a shooting at a supermarket. Authorities have as yet not announced any information about his identity, the type of weapon used, or any possible motive. Aerial footage broadcast live from the scene showed a bloodied man being escorted away in handcuffs and loaded into an ambulance. The policeman killed has been named as Officer Eric Talley, a father of 7 who had been with the police department since 2010. The fatal shooting comes less than a week after shooting attacks at 3 spas in the Atlanta area, which left 8 people dead. The foreign ministers of China and Russia have called for a United Nations Security Council summit over what they term heightened global political turbulence. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov have met to condemn Western sanctions against them over human rights, and they have rejected outside criticism. Mr. Lavrov said during the joint press conference that Russia and China both viewed the US as seeking to rely on Cold War military alliances to undermine the international legal architecture. Israelis are voting in their 4th general election in 2 years in what is widely seen as a referendum on the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Polls are being held as Israel emerges from lockdown and 2 weeks before Mr. Netanyahu's corruption trial resumes. The Prime Minister is fighting charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust. He has been in power continuously since 2009, having served an earlier 3-year term in the late 90s. Opinion polls show the race still too close to call. Bangladeshi officials have begun investigating the cause of a massive fire that killed at least 7 and displaced tens of thousands of people at a Rohingya refugee camp. The huge blaze, the biggest in the cramped settlement since 2017, swept through the camp and destroyed thousands of homes. Police said that it ripped through the bamboo shelters and grew after cylinders of cooking gas exploded to cover about 1/10 of the more than 1 million Rohingya refugees in the area. Authorities in eastern Australia have issued fresh flood warnings and evacuation orders as emergency services have deployed helicopters and boats to rescue residents stranded by rising floodwaters. Severe weather warnings have been extended to areas not previously affected, including the south coast of Sydney, Australia's largest city. Rescue staff on boats can be seen helping people back onto dry land after torrential rains swept away homes and roads. 4 police officers in Kenya are set to stand trial over the death of a British man in 2012 after a judge ruled the case should be heard.
As medical evidence appears to show,
Alexander Monson died in police custody when he was arrested in Kenya for allegedly smoking cannabis. Police have in the past said Mr. Monson died of an overdose, but his family argued he was killed by officers. 2 reports by government pathologists said that Monson died after suffering a traumatic blow to the head. Ethiopia Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has announced that soldiers found to have committed atrocities during the military offensive in the northern Tigray region will be held accountable. The comments by Mr. Abiy comes days after the UN said it had agreed to Ethiopia's request for a joint investigation into allegations of human rights abuses. The US has described the violence in Tigray as ethnic cleansing. The fighting reportedly killed thousands of people and displaced hundreds of thousands. Twitter founder Jack Dorsey's first ever tweet has been sold for the equivalent of $2.9 million. The tweet, which said, "Just setting up my Twitter," was first published on March the 21st, 2006, and was auctioned off by Mr. Dorsey for charity. It was bought by Malaysian-based buyer Sina Estavi. The businessman compared the purchase to buying the Mona Lisa painting. The tweet was bought using a cryptocurrency, which is a rival to Bitcoin. And finally, check out this spectacular drone footage of an active volcano in Iceland. Rare pictures shot from a drone show magma spewing into the night air with lava streaming from the eruption site around 30 kilometers southwest of Iceland's capital Reykjavik. Researchers have descended on the area to study and film the volcano, with some even using the piping hot dried lava to cook hot dogs on. The Icelandic Meteorological Office has classified the eruption as small and said it poses no immediate danger to people in the area. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.